Oh, there he is. Looks like he's coming in now. Perfect. Hey, Norm, how are you?
Hey Jim, how you
I
doing?
I did not want to lose you on the breaking news. I just read this that you guys are going right after the Trump Epstein relationship in the Epstein files.
That's right, Jim.
Yeah.
Here at the Democracy Defenders Fund, we think that Donald Trump's refusal to release the evidence of his contacts with Epstein is a national scandal. And the Congress has provided for how we deal with it when the government holds back information that it's not supposed to. That's called the Freedom of Information Act. It gives us the right to go to court after making a demand for the files. And that's what we've done. And Jim, this is the very first lawsuit of this scandal to demand the actual files. There have been a couple of skirmishes
Yep.
about procedural questions, but here we're demanding the actual files, and we're not going to rest until we get them.
And not to ask the obvious question here, but what exactly are you after? What about this relationship that you really want to target here?
Well, we want to know without any um, sugarcoating. Exactly what did the investigators find out about Trump and Epstein? Of course, we must protect the victims. We don't need to have any victim names in there, but we know from press reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi told Donald Trump, you're in those Epstein files. We know that
Yep.
the Ghislaine Maxwell conversation, which she purports to exonerate Trump and then was transferred to a much more favorable prison, uh, country club prison, that's not a reliable source. So show us the documents. We feel that's owed to the victims, Jim. The victims, one of the lawyers on our team has represented the victims,
Right.
and they're very angry. They feel that justice is not being served. So we're fighting for the victims to get the truth out with due respect for identifying information.
Yeah.
And the American people want to know. So it's the latest of our over 100 legal matters at Democracy
And,
Defenders Fund.
and I know you've been very, very busy on all of this. You've been right on target the whole time. But to me, Norm, and I think you touched on this, what is so damn fascinating about this is they put out this ridiculous memo July 7th saying, nothing to see here. We're sweeping the whole thing under the rug. We're done with this. We're washing our hands of this, despite saying over and over again, we need to release the Epstein files. But it was in May, it's been reported that Pam Bondi, as you were saying, and Cash Patel, whoever else, went to Donald Trump and said, "You're in the Epstein files." And they've played, three-card Monte with this for months now, and we don't know what it is in the files.
Jim, they're not getting away with it. They are
Yeah.
trying to shake this story, and it's one that won't go away. And I'll tell you why. I think that this friendship between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein and the refusal to provide the information that investigators have collected exemplifies the corruption of the Trump regime that has led to these historically low numbers with some polls putting Donald Trump at just 37% of
Right.
Americans approving of him. Um, this is a story about Donald Trump buddying up to the rich and powerful while the most vulnerable in our society were being injured. And Donald Trump even joked about it to the press at the time, talking about Epstein's proclivity for younger women. Well,
That's
it's
right.
no laughing matter. We're going to get to the bottom of it.
Right. And I mean, the victims, the survivors, they deserve justice. They've not gotten justice. I was looking at what Virginia Giuffre has been saying for some time. I mean, I think she had even been kind of a supporter of Donald Trump heading into the election because she thought, well, maybe he's finally going to get to the bottom of this. They've been betrayed time and again. And to think that they may even contemplate pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, setting her free, what a slap in the face to all those victims. And
Um,
I think it speaks to the urgency of what you're doing, Norm.
Well, that's right, Jim.
Yeah.
And this actually the story just broke, and
Yeah.
very first video that I'm doing. You're such a good
I
friend.
appreciate it.
And the two of us embarked on this path of independent media to be able to go
Yeah.
no holds barred at the issues. And this is one that we owe it to the victims. We owe it to the country. We need the truth. There's a saying among litigators: people lie, documents don't. Let's
Yeah.
see the documents. Show me the documents. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to hustle back on over, get back to my legal work. But I
Yeah.
wanted to jump on with you. Thank you for
Well,
tenaciously pursuing this story, and have me back so I can tell you how it all goes.
let's do it, Norm. Absolutely. Happy to do it anytime. You just say when, but I saw this out there and I thought I've got to get in touch with my friend Norm Eisen. He's the best. And I mean this, Norm, because you and I don't talk enough. We talk occasionally. The American people are so grateful to you and your organization, the people you're allied with, for what you are doing. And
Thank
history
you,
is going to
Jim.
show that you are on the right side of history. And damn the torpedoes is what I say at this point, Norm.
That's why I was so glad to, friends, I was in another meeting and Jim pinged me. I'm like, okay, I'll step away. I'm going to talk to Jim and his audience because what you
Okay.
do is so, so important. So
Yeah.
always an honor, my friend.
Always an honor to be on with you. And this, of course, will go out to all of our folks on YouTube and Apple and all the other platforms. So, Norm, big audience with this breaking news that your organization, Democracy Defenders, going after key pieces of the Epstein files as they pertain to Donald Trump. Norm, great to see you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jim. Good to see
All
you.
right. Norm Eisen with the breaking news there. My man, Norm Eisen, he understands the value of breaking news. Norm and I spending many a day around the anchor desk, and I'm so grateful to him. But more importantly, it's about what Norm is doing on behalf of the American people. And folks can say, lawyers, what are they good for, and so on. Got to remember, there are folks out there like Norm, attorneys like Norm, who do this kind of work, public service work, and so really thrilled that Norm is trying to jump into this, and to me, it's just at the perfect time, because Donald Trump, it's been dangerous what he's been doing so far with these distractions. Adam Classfeld joins me now. Adam, great to see you. Really appreciate it. I just had Norm Eisen on for a few minutes there. He wanted to jump on and do some breaking news, so forgive me for that. I'm running all of this through the Substack machine, so it's not always a perfect science, but glad that you're on. But this Epstein files complaint that Norm and his organization that they filed, I guess we could talk about that very quickly and then on to other things. It's important because uh, Trump has really been, I hate to say this, kind of successful in playing hide the ball these last, couple of months since that infamous July 7th memo from the Department of Justice trying to sweep the whole thing under the rug.
Absolutely. And one thing that was remarkable about the July memo that doesn't get spoken of enough
Yeah.
is that for the first time ever in that memo, they released a statistic about the scale of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. They said more than 1,000. That's from the July memo. So to, on the one hand, say that Jeffrey Epstein's crimes happened on a vaster scale than anyone had ever thought was going on or had ever said in a public document. And then on the other hand, say, there's no investigative lead to pursue. There's nothing to release. There's no more there. To say that in the exact same document, that's exactly why there are FOIA lawsuits being filed. That's exactly
Right.
why there's more litigation to get at the truth, because it's patently absurd to have those two statements at the same time.
Yeah. And Adam, I mean, the work you're doing with All Rise News is very important. I do want to talk about a very smart post that you put out there earlier today that I do want to get into. But At the same time, I do want to just sort of pick at this, if we don't mind, this Epstein story just a little bit longer. Um, the thing that is astounding to me is they put out the July 7th memo. That is what, a couple of months, possibly that long, after Pam Bondi and whoever else at the Justice Department went to Trump and said, "Oh, by the way, you're in the Epstein files." So they've been working on this for months now, and of course, it was, prior to that. I assume they've been spending some time going through the files and finding these instances of Trump's name in there. We still don't know what they pertain to. We think that maybe it's this one birthday book that was reported on the Wall Street Journal that triggered the lawsuit, but they said multiple instances. And
Right.
it's astounding to me to this day. We know so much, we've heard so much about Donald Trump over the years. This one thing he has managed to hide, and we just don't know what it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that they dedicated a team to flagging all of these appearances of his name.
Right.
And look, I mean, folks who had been following this, I've been following Ghislaine Maxwell's trial in federal court, and
Yeah.
Mar-a-Lago was repeatedly mentioned. There was an introduction to Donald Trump mentioned in courtroom testimony. So it's a matter of public record, his longstanding friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. So to a certain extent, it's not surprising that he makes multiple appearances in these memos. He was in the Palm Beach area during this time where everything
Yeah.
was going down. What is incredible is how much in this sweeping of things under the rug, they've been called out on it by federal judges and by the victims themselves. And,
Yeah.
this was a story that became a one-day story, but I can't believe that it's not a national scandal, that you have two federal judges, after the Epstein grand jury gambit, where they say, "Oh, we'll give you transparency. We're going to go after the
Right.
grand jury records." And the grand jury records were never going to reveal anything, and they're closely guarded. And you have two federal judges, not one, but two, call it out, say it's a diversion. And you know who signed that request? Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and in New York, at least, the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. The political
Yeah.
appointees are called out as engaging in a diversion. How is that not a national scandal? That
That's so true.
these are federal judges saying that the highest levels of the Justice Department are engaged in trying to fool the public. I mean, that's what a diversion is fundamentally. And
Yes.
then you have a public statement from Ghislaine Maxwell's family saying, "We wholeheartedly agree." So the victims of the crime say the highest levels of the Justice Department are engaged in a diversion. Two federal judges say you're engaged in a diversion.
Yeah.
And it's a 1 or 2 day story.
No, you're absolutely right, and if the judges get it, the rest of us should get it too, and they have been playing hide the ball, three-card Monte, Lucy in the football, whatever you wanna call it, and the other thing that, is very important in all of this is what happens with Ghislaine Maxwell. I was talking with Dave Ehrenberg about this, and, he made a very interesting point. I wonder what you think about this because you cover it so closely. She's trying to appeal her conviction, and her attorney is saying, "Well, because of this sweetheart deal that was given to Jeffrey Epstein, and there are other people involved in the case who were given immunity and so on. That means Ghislaine Maxwell should have immunity, and she should be freed from prison. That she should have her convictions thrown out and so on." And Dave said, it's not a done deal that goes away. He said there's a possibility she could win on that, and I was wondering what you thought of that, because to me, that's going to be an earthquake if somehow she succeeds and walks out of prison.
Right. I mean, I think that Dave sadly is correct. That's not to say that it's likely. That's not to say that she has good odds, but it's absolutely a possibility, which is
Wow.
why in a normally functioning Justice Department, when the convicted sex trafficker has a pending petition before the Supreme Court, you don't choose that moment to try to unseal the grand jury minutes. You
Yeah.
don't choose that moment to conduct a very weird interview, and indefensible interview, frankly. I mean, it's the Deputy Attorney General of the
Right.
United States. The Deputy Attorney General of the United States isn't the one conducting that interview in any circumstance, let alone when there's that pending appeal, and let alone when one of the topics that he's asking her about has to do with active litigation for his former client. You mentioned the birthday book. He
Yeah.
asked Ghislaine Maxwell again and again. And it was the most remarkable thing to me when reading those transcripts. He lets Ghislaine Maxwell revise the entire history of her
Mm.
crimes, lets her disparage the victims, doesn't push back on her at all throughout any of that. But when does Todd Blanche have incredible attention to detail? When it comes to the birthday book, when it comes to a matter under active
Mm.
litigation by Trump, then he asks a series of questions about Trump and only Trump. There are dozens of letter writers that contributed to that book. He only asks about Trump.
Yeah.
And so he tries to get her on record saying, I don't remember anything. She doesn't say he didn't write it. She just doesn't remember whether he did.
Yes.
And then the most remarkable thing at the very end of the 2-day transcript, he returns to this birthday book and he's asking the most detailed questions. What's the composition of the paper? What's the size of the paper? What was the binding? Did you get it
Mm.
professionally bound? And where was it? Now, I want to unpack why I found this really fascinating, because Ghislaine Maxwell said that she got this notebook in discovery, suggesting that at least some of it was in the possession of the Department of Justice, which he's the number 2 of. But he's asking her all these questions, suggesting he doesn't have the original copy. And perhaps his client is very interested in that original copy,
Right.
which, by the way, the House Oversight Committee just subpoenaed yesterday. So I think it's a story that obviously the Wall Street Journal, a huge story and active litigation over it. And
Yeah.
it's one where we're likely to get more information because of everything that's going on.
Yeah, it's not as though Ghislaine Maxwell said, "Oh, no, no, that didn't happen. I remember specifically, and that did not." She said, "I don't remember."
Right.
And I thought that was you're absolutely right. I thought that was so interesting. And I read the Todd Blanche thing the same way you did, which is it was like, talk about leading the witness. My God, that was like the whole point of this whole exercise. And
Right.
it jumps off the page that he's
Yeah.
just leading Ghislaine Maxwell. Can you, okay, here's the point where I need you to exonerate Trump here. Here's where I need you to say he's a gentleman and a scholar there. Like, she's saying things about Donald Trump that nobody says about Donald Trump. Even people who like Donald Trump don't say he's a gentleman. And
Right.
I mean, it's just unreal.
And she couldn't wait to do it. I mean, not
Yes.
only did he lead the witness repeatedly, there's the first person to bring up Trump unprompted is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Right.
I think the question was, how did you meet Epstein? And Trump is a perfect gentleman. It was almost that much of a non sequitur because I
Yeah.
feel like she understood the assignment and she was, she appears to have been rewarded with a comfier prison.
Yeah. It was like pro wrestling. I'm going to body slam you here. You throw me into the ropes there.
Sure.
I do want to talk about, speaking of unpacking, Um, you put out a great post on X, the platform that really none of us should be on, but we have to be on. I'm on it too. And, you made this great point tying the Ghislaine Maxwell situation to Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And you wrote, to correct a point that DHS keeps obfuscating, unlike Ghislaine Maxwell, Kilmar Abrego Garcia has never been charged with trafficking anyone. The trial the Trump administration is trying to avoid with its Uganda scheme is on smuggling accusations. Now, it speaks to something I've been saying, which is, first of all, Donald Trump and his administration, I think they can be credibly accused of being soft on child sex trafficking because of the way they treated Ghislaine Maxwell, the way that she was moved over to a minimum security prison. My God, when does that ever happen? Oh, only when his butt's in a sling. But unpack that for us. Why did you put that out there? I thought that was interesting.
Well, I put that out there because DHS keeps calling him a human trafficker. And
Yeah.
for the first part of it, there's presumption of innocence. Even if he were charged with human trafficking, a government account should not be treating that. But he's not charged with that. And a federal judge specifically dressed down the Justice Department for obfuscating that point, for calling him a human trafficker. And they said that, these words smuggling and trafficking are commonly regarded as interchangeable linguistically, but they're not legally. Smuggling has to do with transportation. He's accused of driving undocumented immigrants. Those are the
Yeah.
accusations. Trafficking has to do with exploitation. And what's the difference? 20 years for Maxwell, and the average penalty under what Kilmar Abrego Garcia stands accused of in the Middle District of Tennessee is about 1 year. So
Mm.
it's
It,
just
it's like driving day laborers around, that kind of a thing.
pretty much, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's part of the reason why he was out on bail and the Trump administration had to get a new plan because the risk of flight was said to be, oh, he's facing a heavy sentence. Then the judge came out in that ruling where she differentiated between smuggling and trafficking and said, no, actually, the average sentence is this. And here are, the number of ways we can guarantee his presence at trial. And you're saying one of the through the looking glass moments where the government is saying that his risk of flight is they might whisk him out of the country again.
Yeah.
But beyond that, just the reason I posted that is that it's a pattern of the Trump administration on official government accounts, not only trying to convict him of
Yes.
crimes that they haven't brought to trial, but trying to convict him of crimes of which he hasn't been charged. And how they repeat all of the crimes that they haven't alleged, that haven't gone through a grand jury. And it's an important point. It's not just a
That's an excellent
legalistic
point.
one.
It's an
Yeah,
excellent point, Adam. And I'm waiting for, and maybe it's already happened, but I would like to see a federal judge slam the Department of Homeland Security for that, because we can't have a situation in this country where the DHS social media accounts can just go after people like this and put out this kind of crap without backing it up in a court of law. I mean, that to me, that is some sinister stuff. And the other thing that I wish we could talk about, Adam, is this notion that we can now deport people to countries not of their origin, or for that matter, continents not of
right.
their origin. Do you think that they can get away with this? Because sending Kilmar Abrego Garcia to Uganda, to me, is quite a remarkable thing to happen if it does happen.
Right. And using it as leverage to try to strong arm him
Yes.
into a guilty plea. That they
Yeah.
said, if you plead guilty, we'll send you to Costa Rica where you know the language. They respect human rights. They will
Mm.
respect specifically your rights and have confirmed that. But if you don't, we'll send you to Uganda. Which has been ruled by a strongman for a number of decades, where they haven't given you any assurances. That isn't justice. And
Yeah.
one of the things that is where there might be some accountability there is that there's a pending defense motion for selective and vindictive prosecution, where these issues could come to a head, including all of the statements from Kristi Noem, from DHS official accounts, from Todd Blanche, from the White House, from Trump himself. There's also possibly this week, we will find out when the schedule is officially set. But Kilmar Abrego Garcia's attorneys filed a new habeas corpus case that is now snaking its way through the District of Maryland, where there could be an evidentiary hearing as
Mm.
early as Friday. I'm planning to go down there to cover it if that in fact happens. But
Interesting.
but it is anticipated that one of the parts of his habeas corpus petition
Yeah.
is that they are holding Uganda over his head for leverage, for retaliating against him for exercising his right to be released on bail. That he had won that right from not one but two federal judges, the magistrate and the district judge, who found that the government didn't meet its burden under the
Mm.
Bail Reform Act. So he has the Fifth Amendment right to pretrial release. So that is coming to a head perhaps very soon. And that's why I think this case is so important. It's how much do what we believe our rights to be. How much do those have teeth?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm watching it very closely.
No, and it's up to the courts to maintain our Fifth Amendment rights to due process. Any person in the U.S., Stephen Miller can, while he's hanging upside down in his back closet, can say people don't have due process in this country unless they're full-blown legal U.S. citizens. But the Constitution says otherwise, and the Constitution, last I checked, is supposed to rule the day. But Adam, great to talk to you. Really appreciate it. Keep firing away on all your social media and the great All Rise News Substack. It's terrific stuff. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Oh, I'm so pleased and so excited that we did as well. Anytime.
Let's do it again and keep us all abreast of what happens with Kilmar. It's such an important case. They're making an example out of him, and I think the case is I think going to change a lot in this country if the courts allow the Trump administration to do what they're doing right now. But thank you, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. That's Adam Klasfeld. He just does terrific work. And there are so many folks covering this stuff in the journalism lane in terms of what is happening with our courts in this country. My God. That is the last of the guardrails, folks. The last of the guardrails. And, perhaps it's our elections as well. We'll find out next year if we're allowed to have them. But the courts have to stop. You can't have a situation in this country where, my God, the courts allow the administration to deport people to countries not of their origin or continents of their origin, that Kilmar can just be dumped off in Uganda. If the courts allow Donald Trump to dump Kilmar in Uganda, that this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. I do want to mention one other thing, and that is apparently Trump was saying he was lying about Washington, D.C., my hometown, and I'm going to defend my hometown. As the old fight song for my football team goes, fight for old D.C. I'm going to fight for old D.C. That's what I'm going to do here on this show. But Trump was saying yesterday that half the restaurants were closed in Washington because nobody could go. This is what he said, quote, half the restaurants closed because nobody could go because they were afraid to go outside. Now those restaurants are opening and new restaurants are opening up. It's like a boom town. This is Donald Trump deluding himself, deluding his supporters as to the impact of his sending the National Guard into Washington, D.C. And keep in mind, they're now armed. The National Guard members are now armed in Washington, D.C. First of all, and thank goodness Jose Andres, he put out a post on this and was fact-checking Donald Trump. And yes, I've said, what's the point of fact-checking Donald Trump? But half the restaurants in Washington, D.C. were not closed. My God. Half the people in Washington, D.C. are not here right now. They're at the beach. That much is true. But half of the restaurants did not close in Washington, D.C. And, I know that facts don't matter to Donald Trump, but reality, some basis of reality should matter to Donald Trump and Fox and MAGA writ large. But my God, half the restaurants closed. He just lies, and and here's the thing. He's trying to claim that somehow he's cleaned up Washington, D.C., a week or so after sending the National Guard. I'm just going to go back to what I was saying earlier on in this program, the local Channel 5 station here in Washington, which, by the way, is Fox. It's a Fox station, Fox O&O, owned and operated station for folks who don't know that lingo, reported that a full busload of National Guard members were seen earlier in the morning picking up trash around Lafayette Park, just outside of the White House. For folks who don't remember, Lafayette Park or Lafayette Square is that little square-shaped or rectangular shaped park on the north side of the White House. Donald Trump had National Guard members picking up the trash in that park. Picking up the trash. That's what Donald Trump thinks our troops with the National Guard should be doing. And keep in mind, folks, the folks who are coming in from out of the state, places like Mississippi and Tennessee and West Virginia, some of the red states that he's taken the National Guard and put them in Washington, they're being taken away from their jobs. They're being taken away from their families. They're being taken away from their lives, their kids, to pick up the trash outside the White House. This should be a bigger story, folks. The national news media needs to pay attention to this. Why is Donald Trump assigning the National Guard to picking up the trash outside the White House. It seems to me that indicates that there isn't enough crime here for them to be on patrol for, if they're picking up the trash outside of the White House. And by the way, if you're going to pick up the trash, we're going to pick up the trash in D.C., folks. You might want to look behind the fence at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. There's plenty of trash to clean up there. I do want to mention one last thing, and that is this. I just have to congratulate Taylor Swift. She and Travis Kelce of the Kansas City Chiefs apparently are getting married. The Associated Press reporting it's a love story, and baby, she said yes. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce are engaged. They announced earlier in the day. Taylor Swift put it out on Instagram. Apparently she's still hot, Donald Trump. Apparently she's still hot. Remember when you said she's not hot? Apparently she's still hot. And we, in what way is Donald Trump the arbiter of who is hot and who is not hot? My God, he is not an authority on this. He would have, if he were, he would have fixed whatever the hell that is on his head. The makeup, you see how my skin tone is pretty consistent here. It just kind of goes from back here, back there. There wouldn't be like lines like the Great Barrier Reef around his face where the orange makeup stops and the white, the impossibly wonder-bred white skin begins before it goes into, as I said earlier, the orangutan ass hair that he has stapled to his head. My God, he is not the arbiter of what's hot and what's not hot. But in the meantime, I do want to say my congratulations to Taylor Swift, who I always thought was hot, and Travis Kelce. Congratulations to both of them. And I just wanted to end on something nice and positive for once, if that's okay. It's summer. Summer's not over yet. And for once, I just want to say something nice and then on positive note. Want to thank everybody for tuning in this afternoon. Really appreciate Norm Eisen jumping on with the breaking news. His organization, Democracy Defenders, filing a lawsuit to sue for those Epstein files that relate to Donald Trump. Thank goodness, my goodness. So glad that that's happening. Cliff Schechter, who always wants to bring a 2x4 over the heads, metaphorically speaking, to leaders in the Democratic Party to get their act together and start fighting as if everything is on the line, because it is. And somebody who I think is just a rising star out there, and that is Adam Klasfeld, who runs All Rise News. If you're not following Adam Klasfeld, go check him out. He's a really terrific reporter on all things legal, and there is so much happening on that front, folks. It is something I will admit I don't cover it quite enough. I wish I did cover it more from that standpoint, but I'm trying. I'm trying to do the best that I can, unlike Donald Trump, who puts no effort into anything that he does. All right, everybody. Thanks again for watching. Still reporting from Washington. I'm Jim Acosta. Have a good evening. And go out and if you're in D.C., go out and have dinner in a restaurant. Not because Donald Trump made it safer, but because it's just what we do in D.C. We go out to dinner. Have a good night, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.